right, we got one more topic today that we're going to dive into. That's Peter Rice, the Peter Rice thing. I know we talked about this yesterday, but I really wanted to dive into this today. We got Casual on the show today, and I want to get his kind of perspective on this and kind of bounce some ideas, speculation, all that off of him. Casual, the news the other day that Chapek and the board fired Peter Rice. A lot to unpack here, but what are your overall thoughts in regards to that whole move by Bob Chapek and the board?
Yeah, it was kind of out of left field. I think I mentioned in a DM, boy, the morning got interesting real quick.
Yeah,
and having a few days to kind of hear different perspectives. I mean, it just really seems like it was one of those things where it's like, you're not the guy for us. There's things going on. We know what you're doing. I'm going to go ahead and relieve you of your duties. It seems like it's pointing in that direction of Rice was kind of already seeming to possibly be gunning for Chapek's job, right now, and maneuvering in different areas to do that. And so Chapek, another businessman, said, "You're out.
You're out."
And I think that's what you have to do when there are even rumblings of that. Because
I was going to say, even if you have just suspicions of it, you're probably best off to just kind of head it off. And Disney isn't a small time operation, so you waiting 2 days could be the end of your career.
Right. No, 100%, 100%. And we've had this conversation on social media and stuff where I think it was WDWNT had an article. They were saying Bob Chapek fires Peter Rice because of what was it? He felt insecure about his job or whatever. But here's the thing, and I kind of respectfully disagree with WDWNT on this, because I don't know any business person. Like, you own a business, right? Or you're a manager even of a department, and you have a single person that's actively trying to undermine you, actively trying to gun for your job. That person probably won't be around much longer. I mean, I don't know any manager, any business owner that would put up with that. And then to kind of sit back and expect Bob Chapek to sit back, "Oh, well, you're just insecure, man." Well, no, you're not. I mean, I don't know who would put up with that.
No,
it's crazy. It's crazy. Of course, he's going to let him go. It's not that Peter Rice had ambition and wanted to be CEO one day. There's probably a line of people that work under Bob Chapek that have that same ambition. DeMauro is one of them. Dana Walden, who he just promoted, probably one of them. There's a whole laundry list of them. Sure. It's just the way that Peter Rice went about it. And Chapek, probably, to be quite honest with you, has intel showing that he was leaking to the press, working against him, actively working against him. And that's what triggered it. Because from what I read in the trades, Bob Chapek even encouraged Peter Rice in August of 2021 to renew his contract. He encouraged Peter Rice to do so. There must have been some news that something came to light recently about Peter Rice that Chapek didn't sit well with him, and he decided, you know what, this guy's got to go. He's got to go.
It's fascinating. You come for the king, you best not miss. That's kind of what it is. And apparently Peter, may have missed a little bit. Look, you can't allow that kind of stuff to occur, and you can't allow undermining and all that. I mean, look what happened. As soon as this happens, I guess the entire conversation was leaked. So it's I wonder who the leaker is. And apparently, as we alluded to before on this show, Peter Rice was asking for an explanation, and Chapek didn't give it. That's cold. But I think the intended effect was to have a chilling effect on the entire company and say, hey, look, you better get your stuff in line here. I ain't gonna be taking this stuff. I ain't gonna be held hostage like I was in April. This ain't gonna happen. This is, this is the company under Chapek, and this is how it's gonna be. I think it's kind of a fascinating thing that's happened here. Now, the speculation was, I guess Peter Rice also didn't play well with others, right? That he didn't necessarily coalesce with other divisions of the company, and obviously, Disney likes to spread its message out through its various verticals and so forth. And what he was doing in TV didn't have that synergistic quality. It's interesting. I asked myself why that might be, and I asked myself, was he attempting to compartmentalize and attempting to undermine utilizing TV, the television division within Disney to do that? It's interesting. You look at, for example, Anika Nani Rose just said recently on Ryan and Kelly, on TV, that that Splash Mountain was coming, and it was coming in 2024. It didn't really seem like a traditional method of doing that. Was that a Peter Rice thing? Could it be a Peter Rice thing? Were these, maybe this division head was trying to influence how other operations run and the onus on them and so forth. It is kind of an interesting thing that these two things happen very close to one another. And I don't know what intel Chapek got, but I think he's onto something here.
Yeah, Vash diving into the 4D chess stuff going on. Yeah. Taking all the angles. But I think it was Aaliyah that brought it up, that watching what the other heads of studios did differently than Chapek in the previous months could now be emboldening Chapek to say, you know what? No, I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
If I'm going to take heat, I'd rather take it for doing what I want to do than trying to follow along and please, this group or that group. So, yeah. And I'd rather see, it's like, if he's the leader, let's see what he's got. If he fails, then he fails, but let it be because of what he did, not because of how people were, nudging and influencing him.
100%.
Well, and that was one of the big issues with Chapek for a longest time, was that and we talked about so much on the show, where he was it felt very reactionary.
Yes.
Everything was like it was like, okay, Chapek came out and said, Disney's not going to be a political football. We're not going to comment on Florida politics. And then like 2 weeks later, it was like, okay, we're going to denounce the bill and we're going to work to repeal it. Right. Yeah. It was like, what? Like, you went from that to that, it was too reactionary. And with the ScarJo thing, it was very reactionary. I think Chapek is starting to kind of realize, look, I got my instincts. I got my business kind of whatever, the model. And I need to start like kind of digging my heels in a little bit here. I can't just sit here and react to everything. I gotta put my foot down, draw a line in the sand. And I think he's smart to do that. I think he's very smart to do that. I think he should have done that a long time ago, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And this whole thing, like you said, like the whole thing about like, Rice asked him, well, why are you firing me? And Bob Chapek wouldn't give him an answer. That was brilliant on Chapek's move, on his part, because if Chapek would have given him an answer, oh, that shit would have been leaked in 2 seconds. Oh, Chapek fired him for X, Y, and Z, right? The whole thing. It would have been all over the news, leaked like crazy. So Chapek, you know what? He's very smartly so, kept his mouth shut. You're not a fit. Goodbye. Short and sweet. That was the right move to make.
And it also would have signaled too, well, I'm firing him for this reason, right? And it would have told the other troops in line, it's like, oh, okay, well, if I don't do that thing, I should be okay. But now you don't quite know where the line is. And we're seeing some interesting moves across maybe social media platforms as a result. Alia, gotta give it another shout out to her. She's always on top of this kind of stuff. And, she was, forwarding some messages in the DMs suggesting that, Jennifer Lee, head of Disney Animation, may have deactivated her Twitter account, and maybe even Pete Docter is going in and deleting tweets. And, I think the intent was to have a chilling effect of the ranks, and you're seeing that play out in very, very interesting. See, there you go. You're seeing that play out in very, very interesting ways, and I think Peter Rice is going to be one in a line of dominoes to fall here, and it's going to be interesting to see how this develops in the coming months, because I don't think this is the end of the story. I think it's the very beginning.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And he's taking the bull by the horns. You know, he's no longer going to be sit back seat and let everyone else decide where the car goes. Chapek is now a driver, and he's gonna determine what happens in the Walt Disney Company. And you might not agree with everything the guy does. I certainly don't. But at least he's going to be taking a much more of a leadership kind of position now, instead of a reactionary position. You know, I think that's a smart move on his part. You got to let everyone know, hey, I'm the CEO here, right? Like, I set the tone. So if you don't like it, you know, head on out. And I think that's
it'll be interesting. The other angle that I was thinking about was, so you have this random out of the blue firing, you have the board, you know, issue that vote of confidence. All of this happening, is it normal for this to happen when all the indicators are going in good directions, when everything at the company seems to be on the proper trajectory? Or do you make these moves because you're noticing something that isn't right and you want to fix it?
right.
That's where I'm curious. I mean, I know we've got a lot of the, you know, personality, you know, somebody gunning for his job, or even, you know, leaking things to undermine. Yeah, those are all good reasons, but is there something else going on that, you know, again, Bob Chapek is privy to, and is no longer going to be reactionary? He's going to get ahead of it, and he's going to say, you know what, I saw this months ago. That's why I made all these moves. That's why we're heading in the right direction now. You know, so I'm just curious if there are certain, you know, rumblings. I mean, we saw what happened with Netflix. Are, you know, Disney streaming numbers not quite where they thought they would be, you know, post that quarterly earnings meeting? And now, you know, with a couple more, you know, a few more weeks of data, they're like, okay, we need to get things buttoned up now. So
No, absolutely.
Just a curious kind of a thing. I have no information about it or anything. It's just you know, normally you don't do these kind of moves and make these kind of announcements if everything is just going swimmingly. Right. So
no, 100%.
And I think that's why Wall Street was kind of freaked out about it. It was just, it's signals uncertainty. It signals, oh, there might be more problems just beneath the surface. And I understand the stock took all stocks.
Yeah, I was going to say it's everywhere, so you can't pinpoint it to just Disney having an issue. It's everywhere.
Correct. No question about it at all. But it definitely, I think it definitely says maybe things are not going right, and I think a lot of that has to do with culture. So when I hear the cultural reasons cited for Peter Rice's unceremonious departure there, I do agree with that a little bit. You know, in IT, you have a saying, culture, not code, right? You can code in safeguards, you can code in all kinds of stuff, but really what's going to keep the operation running the best is the culture that you cultivate. Right. And I think I think it's a similar thing with Disney, right? I'll put it to you like this. There's this thing called the shopping cart theory, that if you have a population, you know, like a community, right, and a large percentage of those community, you know, residents or members put back the shopping cart in the you know, in that place in the parking lot where you're supposed to, right, and don't just leave it out there in these random places or in a parking space, right, then within that community, crime will go down, or you know, be below a certain level or threshold. You know, the community will be, you know, there won't be litter, trash, and there's just less things you have to worry about because the culture is kind of on board with that. And right. Shopping cart is kind of a good indicator for that, because there's really no incentive to do it, right? There's no benefit that you get, right? There's nothing that's reciprocated because of it. It's just the right thing to do. And I think Disney right now is filled with a lot of people that maybe not necessarily are looking out for the company's best interests, and maybe not looking out for, what's in the best interest of the company, what maybe the right thing to do is. I think this is going to be a cultural realignment here, and it's going to be fascinating to see. By the way, fellas, do you hear that right now? Do you hear that? Just listen closely. Yeah, I think that's Chapek walking down. He's snapping necks right now across the hallway. It's looking bad out there.
No, exactly. We got Chapek over here. He's let me see here. He's Vader in the village.
Vader in the village,
Yep.
right?
Vader in the village. He just,
Yep.
No, exactly. Chapek. Something happened with Chapek. He decided, like, you know what? I'm not gonna be a backseat driver anymore. I'm gonna take control. And look, it'll be interesting because there have been a lot of leaks about the Walt Disney Company, C-suite in particular, all the inner workings of Disney. Now let's see. They fired Peter Rice. Let's see how many leaks there are now.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
If the leaks drastically drop, then you know who he was the leaker.
Sector 2. Malfunction in Sector 2. All droids will be shut down for reloading of labor programs. Stand by for power disconnect.